Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss two more important concepts in the field of sociolinguistics, and that is pigeons and Creoles. So in this lecture we'll discuss in detail what are pigeons and what are Creoles, and we will also differentiate between pidgin language and Creole and how a language it changes from pidgin to Creole and finally it becomes a standard language. So I'll provide so many examples of languages that which were originally pidgin's language. Later on they became Creoles, and today they have got some influence from standard languages, right? So let's discuss in detail pigeons and Creole. Pigeons and Creoles. First, we will talk about pidgin. So, pidgin is a simplified language developed for communication between groups who do not share a common language. So it's a simplified form of language. It is used by group of people, might be for some trade purpose or might be for communication purpose, right? And this language it has limited usage, right? And this language is not the language of both group. Fine. For example, there is group A and there is group B. So this language, which we call a pidgin language, does not belong to any group. Fine. So a simplified language developed for communication between groups who do not share a common language, because they don't have a common language and they do not understand each other. Therefore, they develop a simplified language. Fine. And then they communicate with each other. Now, it is used for particular purposes like trading and has no native speakers. Okay. Example, we have like talk peasants in Papua New Guinea started as a pidgin. So this language, okay, that what we call talk peasants, it originated or it started as a pidgin language. Where it is located in Papua New Guinea. Fine. Now, what is Creole? A language that evolves from pidgins to become the native language of a community. So when this language evolves, okay, pidgin language, it evolves, it develops, it becomes Creole. Fine. To become the native, and it becomes the native language of the people, because here two groups who were living in the past, and they develop a language for themselves which was very simplified and they used just for the sake of communication. Now, after might be 50 years, might be 100 years, might be 150 years later on, then their children start that language as their native language. Which language? Pidgin language. Pidgin, which was not the native language of the groups. Fine. Here, in the form of Creole, it becomes the native language of the people, because this language, Creole, was used by their predecessor, okay, their forefathers in the past. So now they use this language as their native language. Okay. So become a native language of a community, and it develops as the children grow up and speaking the pidgin as their first language. So when they start use the pidgin as their first language, it becomes Creole. Now it is a developed form of Pidgin. So gains grammatical and functional complexity. Now it gets some codification, it gets some grammatical structure, it gets some grammatical complexity, where here we see that Pidgin was a very simple or simplified form of a language. Okay, some of the features were taken from one language and some of the features were taken from another language, and a new language was developed for the purpose of communication, for the purpose of trade, right? So this Pidgin had the element of both language, and this Pidgin is not the native language of each group. Fine, and still it is not the native language of these people. Later on, this Pidgin becomes the native language of the children of those people who once used Pidgin. Might be 50, might be 100, might be 200 years ago. So their forefather used this, okay? Their forefather, their grandparents used this Pidgin language. So now it becomes what? It becomes the native language. And it gets now some complex structures in their form, some rules, regulation, like of a proper language. Now, key features of Pidgins. Now, lexifier language, the language that provide most of the vocabulary. So what is a lexifier language? Lexifier is the language which provides most of the vocabulary. So as I told that it's neither the language of one group or another one. Some of the vocabulary structures are taken from one language and some are from another one. So the one which is a dominant one, or the one which provides most of the vocabulary, that language is called lexifier language. Fine. So for example, English is the lexifier for talk Pidgin. Now it's the language that is spoken in New Guinea. So this is okay. This talk Pidgins, most of the vocabularies were taken from English language. So English is the lexifier language for this talk Pidgin. Some of the characteristic: limited vocabulary. Pidgin has limited vocabulary. Now, simple grammar and lacking complex structure, because the purpose is only to communicate or for the trade purpose. It's also called contact language. Now, functional morphemes replace inflectional morphemes. So we can't find such kind of inflection like we are using SMR, we are using as, we are using past form with ed. So we can't find such kind of things in Pidgin. For example, talk Pidgins, it's a sentence that buck boilings you, so your book, and literal it means that the book belonging you. But we see, okay, no inflection form are used here. Pronunciation and meaning. So words may differ in pronunciation and meaning from that source language. Okay, source language, that the one from which most of the vocabulary were taken. Example, we have like grass in the talk Pidgins means hair. Okay, meaning also change and derive it from English grass. So this word, okay, example of the word grass in talk Pidgins mean hair, and it has been derived from the English word grass, because English was a lexifier language for this talk Pidgin. Excuse me. Now, transition from Pidgin to Creole. Now, Creolization, the process by which a Pidgin becomes a Creole. How a Pidgin language becomes a Creole. This process is called Creolization. Now occurs when a Pidgin becomes the first language of a community. Okay, this is called Creolization. So when a Pidgin becomes the first language of community, how it becomes the first language of community? As I told, that once their father used a language for the trade purpose that was Pidgin. Now their children use the same language as they grow, but when the children use the same language, it becomes Creole. And now some structures are developed, some grammatical complexity are created, rules, regulations are created. So now it becomes the first language of community of the children of those who were first used this as a Pidgin. Differences between Pidgin and Creole. So Pidgin has no native speakers, limited use, while Creole has native speaker and use in all aspect of life. This okay, these are the differences. So Creole is a full-fledged language. Fine. Pidgin, no native speakers, limited use, fine, only for the purpose of trade or business. Creole, it has native speakers and use in all aspect of life. It has grammatical complexity also. Example of Creole, for example, that talk Pissons, it is spoken in Papua New Guinea. And similarly, we have Hawaii Creole, English, Hawaii, and we have French Creole, fine, that is spoken in Haiti. We have English Creoles, it is spoken in Jamaica and Sierra Leone. You see that most often we find that English, British are there because British, they occupied most of part of the world in 18th and 19th century. So wherever they went and they stayed there, they occupied places, and then whenever they communicated with the people in their language, so these British, they did not understand their language, and the people who were colonized people, they did not understand English language. So thus they create a language, a shared language, which was not the native language of both people, of the colonized people and the colonizer. So this was like the origin of Pidgin in these countries, and later on these languages they turned to Creole, and now they are full-fledged languages. Creole is a full-fledged language, and then they have also influence from standard language, which is called British English. Now example from talk Pisson. Now early stage, we can see here that bay boy you go, if I'm not mispronouncing, because I'm not like expert in this language, which is called talk Pisson language. So bay you go, so by and by you, it has little bit similarity with this one. Okay, now modern forms will be that you bigo, this is a modern form. Okay, and now it means okay that you will go. So reflects grammatical development similar to the source language. You can see the grammatical that you bigo and you will go. So grammatical structure is similar to the what we learn as lexifier language, okay, or source language. Now complexity, we see here that Creole develop richer grammatical structures there than Pidgins, and we know that it has grammatical structures which are developed one and serve diverse communicative purposes within the community. It is used in all aspects of life, like just Pidgin was used for trade purposes, but this Creole is used in for all purposes, multiple, for getting education, jobs interviews, communication, right, daily life instruction. It has some rules as we have of other languages. Now the post-Creole continuum, it's very important. Now decreolization, okay, the process of decreolization, the language which was first Pidgin, it became Creole. Now what happened after when the language becomes a Creole? Okay, there's a continuum which is known as decreolization. Now retreat from Creole features due to the contact with the standard variety of the lexifier language. It is in contact with the lexifier language, and standard variety. So example, lexicify language, for example, that influence of British English on Jamaican Creole. So the language that is Jamaican Creole, but it has influence of British English, Standard English, or Lexifier English, right? So that's why we see that what happens after the creolization, there is the process of de-creolization. Continuum of variety. So basic Creole, we have basic Creole, which is not influenced, okay, by the standard language, retains most local features. Okay, so you see continuum of variety. First, the Creole language will have local features. Okay, like we have a word here that is known as acrolate. So when a Creole has local features, it is known as acrolate. And then we have another one that is pronounced as closet. Closet to the standard language, it is called then mesolect. When this Creole becomes closer or closer to the standard language, it is known as mesolect. So we have here a word that is known as acrolate when the Creole language has local touch. This is okay, basic Creole. And when the Creole is affected by or it has the influence of lexifier language, source language, right? And it has a closer to the standard language, it is called then mesolect. And this is okay, what we call the intermediate form with mixed feature. Now we have then the intermediate form of this. Now, social factors, for example, variation tied to education, prestige, and identity. Speaker may shift between varieties based on the context. In which context you are. If you are in a context that is like vernacular, so you might use basic Creole. Or if you are appearing for a job interview, so then you might use intermediate form of Creole, which is also has mixed features. Now, example of this continuum. Jamaican Creole basic will be that Afimi book that. So it means, okay, that's my book. It has a local touch. And this is called acrolect. Okay, that Afimi book that. That's my book. The intermediate one would be that is me book. Is me book. It's my book. It's similar, okay, with the source language. And this would be intermediate, or it will have like a feature of mixed feature, the standard one. So it will be like a standard, like it's my book. Is me book. It has the test of like standard one. It's my book. So in a job interviews, in some social context, in a formal context, then they use intermediate, which has a mixed feature of standard language and the local one. So it's my book. So Creole accent retains pronunciation features of the Creole even in the standard like form. Even in a standard like form, but still the pronunciation would be like the local one. Here we have example once again of the talk peasants Papua New Guinea. So first, originally it was a pidgin one. Talk peasant started as a pidgin used for trade and communication between English-speaking colonizer. So they were colonizers and they used this English language, and the indigenous people of the Papua New Guinea. So the Papua New Guinea were the people, they did not understand English. And the Britisher, the colonizer, they did not understand the language used by Papua New Guinea. So what happened? They developed a pidgin. So the early form of the talk peasant had a very simplified grammar and vocabulary, drawing heavily from English, because English was the source language and then English was also ruling over them. No, with some influence from local languages. Okay. Then this talk Pidgin became Creole. Over time, talk Pidgin evolved into Creole as it became the first language of the children born into mixed linguistic community. So later on, when the children, when new children arrived to the world, okay, the language which was introduced by their father, their grandfather, and the language used by their grandchildren or their children, now it became Creole. Born into a mixed linguistic community, so it became fully nativized and gained a more regular grammar and vocabulary. It became now Creole. Standard language. Today, Talk Pidgin is one of the official languages of Papua New Guinea and is used in government, education, and media. It has evolved into standardized language with formal grammar and richer vocabulary. It is now spoken by millions as either a first or second language. So it has now adopted the shape of a standard language, and it has, as I told, mixed feature of the source language, that was English one. Another example of this Pidgin language is Haitians. Creole Haiti. Pidgin. Now, Haitian Creole emerged during the French colonial period, okay, where the French were ruling over Haiti. When enslaved African from various linguistic backgrounds were forced to communicate with French-speaking colonizers, because there was new world and they needed labor, so they brought these slave people with themselves, okay, to dig gold for them, mines for them. So were forced to communicate with French-speaking colonizers. The Pidgin form was a mix of French with influence from African languages, simplified for communication. No, the source language or the lexified language would be French one. And we can see there will be also influence from the local languages which were spoken by the Haitian people. And then it became Creole as it became the first language of the successive generation of children. As I told, in children they have like mixed linguistic item they use. So this Pidgin evolved into Creole with its own fully developed grammar, vocabulary, and phonology. It began the function as the subtle languages its own right, no longer dependent on French for communication now. It became Creole. Later it became standard language. Today, Haitian Creole is an official language of Haiti alongside French. French is also official language, but Haiti is also. It is used in schools, the media, and the government, and has undergone standardization with established norms for writing and grammar. Urdu language that is spoken in Pakistan and India was also a Pidgin. Later on it became Creole, and now it is a standard language. Pidgin Urdu. Now in its early stage, Urdu acted as a contact language between Persian and local languages. It was spoken in 12th, 13th century in Indian subcontinent, okay, and these people were in contact with Persia or Persian language, so they evolved a new language. Fine. Some local languages which were spoken in India, local languages which were spoken in Indian subcontinent. So these people were in contact with Persian language. So this early introduction, because there was also for trade purpose, so this early introduction likely involved simplified form of both languages for trade, administration, and social purposes, and it was called Urdu. So Urdu was initially a Pidgin language, and it was used between the people of Indian subcontinent and the people of Persia for the purpose of administration, social instructions, and for trade purpose. And from here, they evolved or developed a Pidgin language. Creole Urdu. Over time, the mixing of the Persian and Arabic Turkish and local dialect like Hindavi created a subtle nativized form of language, and it became the lingua franca of the Mughal court and communities, which gradually evolved into what we now recognize as Urdu. Standard Urdu, within the influence of the British and the development of literature, education, and media, Urdu was standardized. It now has a formalized grammar, vocabulary, and script, making it a standardized language used in Pakistan and parts of India. So now we summarize today's detailed lecture. So Pidgin simplified contact language for practical purposes. Non-native speakers Creole evolved from a Pidgin and becoming a community native language gains grammatical and functional depth, and post-Creole continuum reflect influence of standard language on Creole and highlights the dynamic nature of language evolution. So thank you so much. It was all about Pidgin and Creole and standard language. How a language was first Pidgin, how it became Creole, and how it became a standard language. So once again, thank you so much. If you have any question, please ask your question in comment section and I'll answer.